The applause crashes through the living room like a physical wave, but I am not the one standing in the spotlight. My name is Violet Cole, and I am invisible. I grip a tray of dirty champagne flutes, watching my sister beam under the ring lights, her perfect life paid for by a signature she stole from me. The air smells of expensive lilies and old lies. They think I am just the background character in their family drama, the one who cleans up the mess and fades away. But they forgot that even shadows can have sharp edges. It is time to stop paying their price. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to our channel. We always appreciate the time you spent here with us. I pulled my 10-year-old sedan into the driveway of my parents' sprawling suburban Ohio home, squeezing it between a gleaming white Range Rover and a Lexus that cost more than my entire college education. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror one last time. I looked tired. I always looked tired lately, but I forced a smile, smoothing down my blazer. My mother, Denise, had texted me 3 times today, reminding me not to be late for family dinner. She said it was just going to be us, a quiet night to catch up. I should have known better. The moment I opened the front door, the noise hit me like a physical wall. The house wasn't quiet. It was vibrating. Bass thumped from the surround sound system, and the entryway was choked with people, cousins, neighbors, and a swarm of 20-somethings holding champagne flutes and smartphones. The air smelled of expensive perfume and catering trays. It wasn't a dinner. It was a production. Violet, finally. My mother appeared out of the crush. She wasn't wearing her casual Friday clothes. She was in a sequined cocktail dress, her hair stiff with hairspray. Before I could even say hello, she shoved a heavy pile of faux fur coats into my arms. "The coat rack is full. Just take these to the master bedroom, would you? And on your way back, grab the tray of empty flutes from the living room. It looks messy." I stood there blinking, holding the coats of strangers, while my mother spun away to greet a local news anchor. That was the dynamic. That had always been the dynamic. In the Cole family, love was a currency, and the exchange rate was rigged. There was Harper, the investment, the star, the bubbly influencer whose every breath was treated like a press release. And then there was me, Violet, the stable one, the background noise. As I hauled the coats up the stairs, the familiar ache settled in my chest. It wasn't just tonight. It was the history of us. I remembered being 17, standing in the driveway, while my father Mark handed Harper the keys to a brand new convertible. She had totaled her previous car 3 weeks earlier by rear-ending a stopped school bus while texting. Her punishment was an upgrade. When I asked about help for my college interview transport the next week, Dad had barely looked up from his newspaper. "Take the bus, Violet. It builds character. You're the smart one, figure it out." I figured it out. I always figured it out. When Harper brought home C-minuses, they threw her a "congratulations on doing your best" dinner. When I brought home a full academic scholarship that saved them 40 grand a year, Mom had sighed and said, "Well, of course you did. You don't have a social life to distract you." If Harper screamed, she was comforted. If I cried, I was too sensitive. If I complained, I was too dramatic. I dumped the coats on my parents' bed and went back downstairs, navigating the sea of bodies. I found the empty tray of glasses and started loading it up, invisible to the guests around me. I was essentially unpaid staff. Everyone, can we gather in the living room, please?" My father's booming voice cut through the chatter. He was standing by the fireplace, tapping a crystal spoon against a glass. Next to him stood Harper. She looked radiant. I had to admit, dressed in white silk, clinging to the arm of her fiancé, a fitness trainer named Kyle, who had the personality of a golden retriever. "Tonight is special," Dad announced, beaming so hard his face looked red. "We aren't just celebrating Harper and Kyle's engagement. We are celebrating the launch of Harper's new lifestyle brand, Purely Harper. We are so proud of our girl." Applause rippled through the room. I stood in the back holding a tray of dirty glasses, trying to blend into the curtains. "We wanted to honor our girls tonight," Mom said, stepping up to the microphone they had actually set up in the living room. "Harper, baby, come here." They presented the gifts with theatrical flair. First, a flat box. Harper opened it to reveal a Rolex gold and heavy. She shrieked, flashing it for the 3 different friends who were live streaming the event. Then Dad handed her an envelope. And to help you two start your life together. The down payment for the house on Willow Creek. The room gasped. That was a $500,000 property. I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach. I was still paying off the small student loans I'd had to take out for my master's degree because they said money was tight that year. And, Mom continued, look at the screen. A projector beam hit the wall, revealing a sleek, expensive logo. We hired the best design firm in the city to make sure Purely Harper starts off right. Harper was crying now, perfect photogenic tears. You guys are the best. I literally have the best family ever. Then the room went quiet and Mom's eyes scanned the crowd until they landed on me in the back. And Violet. Come up here, honey. We didn't forget you. I froze. I wanted to disappear. But the guests parted, creating a path. I set the tray down on a side table and walked forward, my legs feeling like lead. I forced that tight, grateful smile onto my face. Violet, Mom said into the microphone, her voice dripping with performative sweetness. You have always been our rock. So serious, so steady. She handed me a gift bag. It was wrinkled. I recognized it. It was from my aunt's birthday 3 months ago. I reached in and pulled out a paperback book. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a... No, it wasn't even that popular one. It was a bargain bin generic title, Smile More, a guide to unleashing your inner joy. A few people chuckled. Read the card, Vi, Dad urged, grinning. I pulled out the card. It wasn't in an envelope. I opened it and my mother's handwriting stared back at me. Violet, you've always been our rock. Maybe this will help you loosen up and find some sparkle like your sister. I stared at the words. Find some sparkle like your sister. Read it, someone shouted from the back. It says... My voice caught. I cleared my throat. It says maybe this will help me loosen up and find some sparkle like my sister. The room erupted in laughter. It wasn't warm laughter. It was the laughter of a crowd watching a clown slip on a banana peel. It was a joke. I was the joke. Ah, don't look so sour, Vi, Harper chirped. She grabbed my arm, yanking me toward her. Guys, look. This is my big sis, Violet. She was holding her phone up. The ring light blinded me. I could see the interface of Instagram Live. The viewer count was ticking up. She's the responsible one, Harper told her followers, squeezing my shoulder hard. We're trying to help her glow up, guys. Drop some hearts if you think Violet needs a makeover. I looked at the screen. The comments were scrolling fast. Sis looks tired. She jealous far. Why is she making that face? Awkward vibes, LOL. Yikes, the sister is a total buzzkill. I felt the humiliation burn into me, hot and agonizing. It felt like I was being branded. I wasn't a person to them. I was a prop. I was the before picture in Harper's afterlife. I pulled away, muttering something about needing to check on the food, and retreated to the kitchen. The kitchen was empty save for the caterers who were busy packing up. I leaned against the granite island, my hands shaking. I felt gutted, hollow. I had spent my whole life trying to be good enough, trying to be low maintenance, so they would appreciate me. And all it got me was a reused gift bag and a public roasting. I heard footsteps in the hallway, my mother and my aunt. I froze, not wanting to be seen. Oh, stop worrying, Denise, my aunt was saying. You spent a fortune on Harper tonight. Are you sure you can afford the down payment? Honestly? My mother's voice floated in, clear and dismissive. We have to invest in Harper. She's the one who's going to make it big. Harper will be the one to take care of us when we're old. She's the future. What about Violet? My aunt asked. I held my breath. Violet. My mother laughed, a dry, sharp sound. Violet will be fine. She always is. She's used to figuring it out. We don't need to worry about her. The words hit me harder than the laughter in the living room. Violet will be fine. Not loved, not successful, not important. Just fine. Useful. Low maintenance. Expendable. For the first time in my life, I realized I wasn't part of their future at all. I wasn't a daughter to them. I was an insurance policy they didn't think they needed anymore because they had hit the jackpot with Harper. I looked down at my hand. I was still clutching the card. I was gripping it so hard the corner had pierced the skin of my palm. A single drop of blood welled up dark against the white cardstock. I watched it smear over the word sparkle, and the room seemed to fade to black around me. I woke up the next morning with a headache that sat behind my eyes like a bruised weight. My apartment was quiet, too quiet. It was a cramped one-bedroom on the third floor of a walk-up 40 minutes from the city center. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Every piece of furniture from the second-hand IKEA desk to the lumpy futon was paid for with money I had earned. I prided myself on that. My life was small, steady, and built on the belief that if I just kept my head down and worked hard enough, I would eventually earn the respect I craved. I shuffled to the kitchen to make coffee, the events of the party playing on a loop in my mind. Violet will be fine. The words still stung. I tried to shake it off. I had work to do. I was up for a promotion to senior payroll specialist at the manufacturing plant where I'd worked for 5 years. It came with a raise that would finally let me move to a building with an elevator. I grabbed the mail from the floor where the slot had deposited it. Most of it was junk, but one envelope stood out. It was thick with red urgency text stamped on the front. Final notice delinquent account. I frowned, tearing it open. It was from a student loan servicer I didn't recognize. I scanned the letter, my confusion deepening. They were demanding payment for a loan originating 3 years ago. That didn't make sense. My college tuition had been covered almost entirely by scholarships, and the one small federal loan I did have was on autopay. I checked the account number. It wasn't mine. I dialed the number on the letter, assuming it was a clerical error. I held the phone to my ear, tapping my fingers on the counter, impatient. "Thank you for calling," the agent chirped. "I see here we have 3 missed payments on the private loan ending in 4552. "There's a mistake," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I never took out this loan. Is this Violet Cole's Social Security ending in 8901? My stomach dropped. "Yes, but..." "Well, the loan was signed electronically 3 years ago. The funds were dispersed to a checking account ending in, let's see, 3320. The room seemed to tilt. Account 3320. That was my parents' joint checking account. "I need to check something," I whispered and hung up. My hands were trembling as I opened my laptop. I worked in payroll. I knew how to trace money. I knew how financial backgrounds worked. I navigated to a credit reporting site and paid the fee to pull my full detailed credit report. I waited for the loading bar, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. When the screen refreshed, I gasped. It was a sea of red. It wasn't just one loan. There were 3 credit cards, all maxed out to their limits. There was a $30,000 home improvement loan taken out 2 years ago, right around the time my parents had installed their new sprawling cedar deck. There was a personal loan for $12,000 labeled for medical expenses. I looked at the date. It was the same month Harper had gotten her nose job and breast augmentation, which she claimed were investments in her brand. All of it was in my name. I scrolled through the details, feeling a wave of nausea so violent I had to grip the edge of the desk. The contact email on the accounts wasn't mine. It was an old Yahoo address my mother used for sweepstakes. The emergency contacts listed were Denise and Mark Cole. How had they done this? Then I remembered. 3 years ago. I had been visiting for the weekend and my dad had called me into his office. "Violet, honey, you're good with numbers. Can you just sign these tax documents for me? The accountant made a mess of things, and we need to verify you as a dependent for that 1 year to get the write-off. Just sign where it's highlighted." I had trusted him. I hadn't even read the fine print. I had just signed the digital pad where he pointed. I had signed my own life away. I wasn't just the family scapegoat. I was their financier. I was the host body they were feeding off of. I grabbed my keys. I didn't brush my hair. I didn't change out of my sweatpants. I drove to their house, my vision blurring with a rage I had never felt before. It wasn't the hot, crying anger of the night before. This was cold. This was survival. I burst into their house without knocking. It was Saturday morning. They were in the kitchen, the same kitchen where I had been ignored the night before. Dad was reading the paper. Mom was whisking eggs. Harper was sitting at the island editing a selfie wearing a silk robe that probably cost more than my car. Violet. Mom looked up, spoon poised. You're up early. We were just… How much? I choked out. I threw the credit report printout onto the granite island. It slid across the surface and hit the bowl of fruit. Dad lowered the paper slowly. He didn't look surprised. He looked annoyed. Violet, calm down. What is this? You know what it is, I snapped, my voice shaking. Loans, credit cards, Harper's surgery, the deck, all of it. In my name. The room went deadly silent. Harper looked up from her phone, chewing her lip, looking bored rather than guilty. It was just temporary, Dad said, his voice dropping to that reasonable, condescending tone he used when he was explaining why he couldn't come to my school plays. We were going to pay it off. Business has been a little slow, and with the interest rates… You forged my signature, I screamed. You stole my identity. That is a felony. Lower your voice, Mom hissed, glancing at the windows. The neighbors. She walked around the island, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Then she reached out, trying to touch my arm. I flinched back. Violet, listen, she said, her eyes filling with those weaponized tears. We thought you'd understand. You're so stable. You have good credit. You have a steady job. We couldn't get approved for the loans we needed to help Harper launch. The banks, they don't understand the vision. So you stole from me. I stared at her, horrified. To pay for her nose job. It wasn't a nose job, Harper corrected, rolling her eyes. It was a deviated septum repair and aesthetic balancing. It's for my career, Violet. You act like it's that serious. Once my brand blows up, I'm going to pay it all back. I'll write you a check for double. We're family. Family doesn't steal from each other, I said. We didn't steal, Denise said, and her face hardened. We had to put someone's name on the paperwork. Who else were we going to use? You should be grateful we trust you with such big responsibilities. It shows we know you can handle it. I stared at them. They truly believed it. They believed that my credit score, my name, my financial future, it all belonged to the family collective. Or rather, it belonged to Harper, and I was just the vessel holding it for her. Fix it, I said. Pay them off. Today. Transfer the debt to your names. Dad scoffed, picking up his coffee mug. Don't be ridiculous, Violet. We can't just transfer debt. We'd have to refinance, and our credit isn't positioned for that right now. Just keep making the minimum payments on your end, and we'll send you some cash when we can. Stop making a scene. I'm not making the payments, I said, backing away toward the door. I'm not paying for your deck. I'm not paying for her face. If you don't pay, Mom warned, her voice turning cold, it will ruin your credit, not ours. She was right. They had me trapped. If I stopped paying, I torched my own future. If I kept paying, I accepted my role as their eternal servant. You have 1 week, I said, my hand on the doorknob. 1 week to figure this out, or I go to the police. You wouldn't dare, Harper laughed. You're too scared of conflict. I slammed the door so hard the glass pane rattled. I marched to my car, my breath coming in short, sharp gasps. I fumbled for my keys, blinded by tears of pure fury. I started the engine, just wanting to get away, to get back to my small, safe apartment. My phone buzzed in the cup holder. I glanced down. It was an email notification. From HR, Payroll Department. Subject: update on internal promotion application. I grabbed the phone, desperate for a win. Desperate for one good thing to happen in the last 24 hours. I opened the email. Dear Violet, thank you for your interest in the senior specialist position. Unfortunately, we are unable to move forward with your application at this time. As you know, this role requires a high level of security clearance regarding financial data. During the standard background check, several unresolved financial red flags and a high debt-to-income ratio were flagged on your credit report. Per company policy, we cannot promote employees to sensitive financial roles with this level of liability. I stared at the screen. The words blurred. My parents hadn't just humiliated me at a party. They hadn't just stolen my money. They had just reached into my workplace, into the one part of my life I had built entirely on my own, and crushed it. I dropped the phone. A scream tore out of my throat, raw and guttural, trapped inside the small gray sedan. I wasn't just a daughter they didn't love. I was a casualty. And looking at that email, I realized the damage was already done. Monday morning was a funeral for the life I thought I was building. I sat in the small glass-walled office of the HR director, staring at a stain on the carpet, while she spoke in hushed, pitying tones. She didn't say fraud. She didn't say theft. She used words like risk assessment and financial integrity. She had the credit report on her desk, the one my parents had destroyed. I felt a burning shame radiating off me like a fever. This place, this office had been my sanctuary. It was the one place where I was competent, respected, and judged solely on my output. Now my parents' greed had seeped in here too, staining everything. "We value you, Violet," she said, sliding a piece of paper across the desk. "But until these matters are resolved, we can't keep you in the payroll department. We could offer you a temporary reassignment to data entry at a reduced rate while you sort this out." It was a demotion, a public shaming. I would be moving boxes of files while my former peers watched. I looked at the paper. I thought about my father's dismissal, my mother's manipulative tears. If I stayed, I would spend the next 5 years clawing back to zero while they continued to bleed me dry. I would be the small, sad daughter paying off their debt forever. "No," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, hollow but steel hard. "Excuse me?" "I resign," I said. I stood up. Effective immediately. I didn't wait for her to argue. I walked out, cleaned out my desk in 10 minutes, and left the building. I had $3,000 in my savings account. It was everything I had. That night, I made the decision that terrified me most. I broke my lease. I knew I couldn't afford the rent without my job, and I couldn't get another finance job with my credit score in ruins. I packed everything I could fit into my sedan clothes laptop, a box of books, and left the rest. I tossed my apartment keys in the drop box. Before I started the car, I pulled out my phone. I blocked my mother. I blocked my father. I blocked Harper. But before I did, I sent one group text. "Do not use my name, my credit, or my social security again. You lost that right." Then I threw the phone onto the passenger seat and drove. I didn't know where I was going, just that I had to be away from them. I drove to a city 2 hours north, a place where no one knew the name Cole. The descent happened faster than I thought possible. I thought I could find a cheap apartment, maybe a studio, but every application required a credit check. With a score that had tanked into the 400s thanks to the maxed-out cards, door after door slammed in my face. Landlords looked at me with suspicion, treating me like a deadbeat before I even opened my mouth. 2 weeks later, I was sleeping in my car. I parked in the back of a 24-hour superstore lot, reclining the seat and covering myself with my coat. It was November in Ohio. The cold was a physical assault. It seeped through the windows, settling into my bones. I learned to sleep in 20-minute bursts, waking up every time a headlight swept across the windshield, terrified it was the police telling me to move along. My savings bled out on gas, cheap food, and a gym membership I used solely for the showers. I was crumbling. I caught my reflection in a shop window one morning, hair frizzy, eyes rimmed with dark circles, clothes wrinkled. I looked like the failure my family always treated me as. One rainy Tuesday, when the cold was unbearable, I ducked into a small, warm diner on the edge of town called The Skillet. It smelled of grease and old coffee. I sat in a booth in the back, nursing a single cup of coffee for 2 hours, just soaking up the heat. I counted the change in my pocket. $4.12. A plate slid onto the table, a mountain of fries steaming hot. I looked up. A woman stood there wiping her hands on a stained apron. She was in her 50s, with dark hair pulled back in a severe bun, and eyes that missed nothing. Her name tag read Rosa. "I didn't order this," I whispered, terrified she would charge me. "Cook made too many," Rosa said, her voice gravelly but not unkind. "Can't serve 'em twice. Eat up." I ate like a starving animal. When I finished, I looked up to find her watching me. She didn't look at me with pity. She looked at me like she was assessing a structural problem. "You need a job?" she asked. I blinked. I have experience in payroll and accounting." Rosa laughed a sharp bark. "Honey, you look like you're sleeping in that Honda out back. I don't need an accountant. I need someone to bus tables and work the register on the night shift. Pays cash tips. Minimal questions asked." I almost cried. "Yes, please." For the next month, that diner became my world. I worked double shifts scrubbing floors, pouring coffee, carrying heavy trays until my arms shook. The physical labor was grounding. It stopped my brain from spinning. At night, Rosa let me sleep on a cot in the back storage room so I wouldn't have to freeze in the car. Rosa became the mother figure I didn't know existed. She wasn't soft. She yelled when I mixed up orders and made me remop the floor if it wasn't spotless. But she was fair. She saw me. One late night, after we flipped the sign to closed, she poured us 2 mugs of coffee and sat across from me. "You're educated," she said, pointing a spoon at me. "You count back change faster than the register does. You carry yourself like you're waiting for someone to hit you." "What's the story, Violet?" I hadn't spoken about it to anyone. But something about the smell of the diner and Rosa's steady gaze broke the dam. I told her. I told her about the party, the loans, the credit report, the HR meeting. I expected her to tell me I was stupid for signing those papers years ago. Instead, she slammed her hand on the table. "That ain't family," Rosa said fiercely. "That's a parasite. You're not broken, girl. You're being exploited. There's a difference." "I let it happen," I whispered. "You were conditioned to let it happen," she corrected. "Now what are you going to do, you hiding here forever?" "I don't know what to do. They have all the power." "Bull," Rosa said. She pulled out a notepad. "You have the truth. Tomorrow you're going to the legal aid clinic on 4th Street. My cousin works the front desk. They help with financial abuse. You start documenting everything. You fight back." For the first time in months, a small flame lit in my chest. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I had a plan. I finished my shift with a new energy. I felt cleaner, lighter. Rosa had given me the address for the clinic, and I was going to go first thing in the morning. I was wiping down the counter, humming to myself when my phone chimed. It was an Instagram notification. I had created a new anonymous account just to keep tabs, though I never posted. The notification was from Harper. Harper Cole went live, my truth. My stomach turned over. I hesitated, then tapped the notification. The video loaded. The thumbnail was a close-up of Harper's face, mascara running, eyes red and puffy. The title read, "My Difficult Sister, Why She Left and How I'm Staying Strong." I put in my earbuds, my hand shaking. "Hey guys." Harper's voice was thick with emotion. She was sitting in my parents' living room, the same room where they had humiliated me. "I've been getting a lot of questions about why my sister Violet isn't around anymore. And honestly, it's really hard to talk about." She wiped a tear. "Violet has always struggled. She's always been jealous of my success, and I tried to help her. We all did. But when I started getting traction with purely Harper, she just snapped. She ran off. And worse." Harper looked directly into the camera, her eyes wide and innocent. "She took money. She left my parents with a lot of debt that she promised to pay. We're still trying to clean up the mess she made." I stood frozen in the empty diner. The audacity was breathtaking. She was taking the crimes they committed against me and rewriting history so that I was the villain. "But I forgive her," Harper whispered on screen. "I just hope she gets the help she needs. We're praying for her." The video ended. I stared at the black screen, the silence of the diner deafening around me. They weren't just content with stealing my money. They were stealing my reputation. They were making sure that even if I did come back, no one would believe a word I said. "Everything okay?" Rosa called from the kitchen. "No," I said, my voice barely a whisper, clutching the phone until my knuckles turned white. "No, it's not." I sat in the back booth of the diner, the screen of my phone glowing like a toxic isotope in the dim light. I watched Harper's video for the fourth time. The view count was climbing 10,000, 20,000. It was spreading like a virus. Harper's narrative was a masterpiece of weaponized victimhood. She didn't just lie, she twisted reality until it was unrecognizable. She showed a photo of my empty apartment, which meant my parents had gone there, likely charming the landlord into letting them in, and used it as proof of my guilt. "She just vanished," Harper whispered to her camera, clutching a mug of tea with both hands, to look smaller, more vulnerable. "We found out later about the loans. She took out all this money in secret. My parents, they're saints, you guys. They co-signed because they believed in her, and she just ran off with the cash and left them with the bill. I'm working double time on my brand just to help them keep the house." I felt like I was being flayed alive. It wasn't just the lies about the money. It was the character assassination. She was painting me as unstable, greedy, and jealous. She was taking the very abuse they had inflicted on me, the financial exploitation, and projecting it onto me. Then I made the mistake of scrolling to the comments. User 77. "I always got weird vibes from the sister. She never smiled in your stories. Blessed Mama. Praying for you. Harper toxic family members are the worst. Cut her off." Then I saw a name I recognized, Mrs. Gable. She was a deacon at the church I had attended since I was 5. She had taught me Sunday school. She had shared the video to the Maplewood Community Faith Group page, with the caption, "So heartbroken for the Cole family," a cautionary tale about envy and greed. "Let's pray for Violet's wayward soul." And right below it, a comment from my mother, Denise. "Thank you for the prayers, Brenda. We just want our prodigal daughter to come home. We are ready to forgive her debts if she just takes responsibility." I threw the phone. It skittered across the linoleum floor and hit the base of the counter. "I'm going back," I said, standing up. My hands were shaking so hard I had to clench them into fists to stop the tremors. "I'm going to drive down there right now. I'm going to scream the truth in their faces. I'm going to burn that house down." I grabbed my keys blind with a rage that felt like it was melting my insides. "Sit down." The voice wasn't loud, but it cracked like a whip. Rosa was standing at the end of the counter, a rag in her hand. She didn't look alarmed. She looked annoyed. "I can't let them get away with this, Rosa. They're ruining me." "I know they are," Rosa said, walking over and picking up my phone. She checked it for cracks, then slid it into her apron pocket. "But if you go down there screaming like a banshee, you're just going to prove them right. They called you unstable. You show up screaming and you're unstable. They called you violent. You throw a fit and you're violent. You're walking right into the trap they set." "So what? I just let them lie." "No," Rosa said, guiding me back to the booth and shoving me down onto the vinyl seat. "You don't go to war without armor. And right now you're naked. You're reacting. You need to start attacking, but you do it smart." She pulled a notepad out of her pocket and slapped it on the table. "Write it down, everything they lied about. Then we find the paper that proves it's a lie. Tomorrow, you go to the clinic." The next morning, I sat across from Malik Jefferson in a cramped office at the Legal Aid Center. Malik was younger than I expected, maybe 30, with tired eyes and a suit that was well pressed, but fraying at the cuffs. He listened to me for 20 minutes without interrupting. He looked at the credit report Rosa had helped me print. He looked at the screenshots of Harper's video. When I finished, he leaned back and exhaled slowly. "Okay, legally, this is a slam-dunk case of identity theft and fraud. The signatures don't match. The disbursement dates for the loans align with your sister's public posts about her investments. It's clear." "Great," I said, feeling a surge of relief. "So we can arrest them." Malik grimaced. "It's not that simple. The police in your hometown. They know your parents. Upstanding citizens. Country club types. Yes. Police reports for family fraud often get filed as civil matters unless you push hard. They stall. And a civil lawsuit takes money you don't have and time you don't have. It could take 2 years to get a judgment. In the meantime, that video is up. The narrative is setting like concrete. He tapped the screenshot of Harper's face. The law is slow, Violet. Public opinion is fast. By the time a judge clears your name, the world will have already decided you're a thief. Your career will be dead. I felt the air leave the room. So there's nothing I can do. I didn't say that, Malik said. He leaned forward, his voice dropping. I can file the paperwork. I can start the fraud investigation with the lenders. That puts pressure on them. But if you want to stop the bleeding, if you want to kill that story they're telling, you need leverage. You need to fight them in the arena they chose. The internet, I said. The truth, Malik corrected. But supported by receipts. Cold, hard, boring documentation. I spent the next 3 days in a fever state. I didn't sleep. I turned the small back room of the diner into a war room. Rosa brought me sandwiches and coffee while I dug. I went through 5 years of bank statements I downloaded. I found the transfers. July 12th. A $12,000 personal loan deposited into my account, which I had no access to, and immediately transferred to Dr. Eris Cosmetic Surgery Center. July 14th. Harper posts a photo on Instagram. So excited for my new look, #self-care. I found the home improvement loan. April 4th. $30,000 disbursed. April 10th. Mark Cole posts on Facebook. Finally breaking ground on the new deck, Harper's idea to expand the entertaining space. I dug up old birthday cards from my grandmother to find samples of my real signature. I scanned them next to the loan documents. The forgery was laughable, a looped, childish scrawl that looked nothing like my sharp, angular handwriting. I had it all: the timeline, the money trail, the motives. But the fear was still there. I was a private person. I hated attention. That's why I was good at payroll. I liked the background. The idea of putting my face on a screen, of inviting the world into my trauma, made me physically nauseous. On Thursday night, Malik stopped by the diner. He looked at the binder I had assembled. "This is good," he said. "This is enough to bury them in court eventually. But are you sure you want to take the next step? If you go public, you can't take it back. It's nuclear. You'll be declaring war on your own family." I looked at the binder. Then I looked at my phone. Harper had posted another update an hour ago. A selfie of her and my parents at dinner smiling. Caption, "Staying strong together. Forgiveness is a journey." Family first. They looked so happy, so unburdened. They were eating steak while I was sleeping on a cot in a pantry counting tips to buy toothpaste. They weren't sorry. They were thriving on my destruction. I remembered my mother's voice at the party. "Violet will be fine. She always is." They thought I would take it. They thought I would fade away, accept the debt, accept the shame, and eventually come crawling back to beg for scraps of their affection. They thought I was weak because I had been silent. I looked at Malik. The nausea was gone. In its place was something cold and heavy, like a stone settling in my gut. "I'm done hiding," I said. My voice didn't shake this time. "They made me a shadow in my own life. They used my name to build their kingdom. I'm taking it back." "If you do this," Malik warned, "you need to be exact. No emotion, no exaggeration, just the facts. Can you handle the fallout? Because they will come for you harder than before." I picked up my phone and opened the camera app. I wiped the lens on my sleeve. I saw my reflection, tired, yes, but eyes sharp. I didn't look like a victim anymore. I looked like a witness. "They want a story," I whispered. "I'll give them a story." I looked at Rosa, then at Malik. "Watch me." The back room of the diner smelled of cardboard and industrial cleaner, but to me it felt like a command center. I stacked 3 crates of napkins on top of each other to make a tripod for my phone. The lighting wasn't flattering, just a harsh overhead fluorescent strip, but that was the point. Harper had ring lights, filters, and a team of editors. I had the truth. "You ready?" Rosa asked. She was leaning against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching me like a boxing coach before the bell. I think so, I said. My heart was thumping, but my hands were steady. I wasn't shaking anymore. I hit record. I didn't smile. I didn't wave. I stared directly into the lens, stripping away every ounce of the people-pleasing daughter I had been trained to be. My name is Violet Cole, I said, my voice low and level. You've probably heard about me recently. My sister Harper Cole posted a video claiming I stole from my parents and abandoned my family. You've heard her story. Now I'm going to show you the receipts. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I adopted a tone I had seen in true crime documentaries, calm, detached, factual. I held up the first document, the credit report. This is a loan for $30,000 taken out in my name. I narrated, pointing to the date. My sister claimed I used this money to run away. But if you look at the disbursement date, April 4th, and then look at this post from my father's Facebook on April 10th, I held up a screenshot of my dad grilling on the new cedar deck. You'll see where the money actually went. I moved to the next paper. This is a $12,000 personal loan for medical expenses. My sister claimed I have a drug problem, but here is the bank transfer record showing the funds moving from the account created in my name directly to the Heiress Cosmetic Surgery Center. And here, I held up Harper's new me selfie, is the nose job she debuted 3 weeks later. I went through it all, the forged signatures next to my real one, the rejection letter from my job blacking out the company name but leaving the reason visible, financial fraud flags. I didn't run away because I was jealous, I said into the camera, leaning in slightly. I left because I was being cannibalized. My parents forged my signature to fund a lifestyle they couldn't afford, and when I tried to stop them, they destroyed my career to keep me silent. I paused, letting the silence hang heavy in the air. I believe in hard work. I believe in paying your debts. I worked in payroll for 5 years. I know the value of $1, but family doesn't give you the right to own another person. It doesn't give you the right to treat a daughter like a credit card. I reached for the button to stop recording. My name is Violet Cole. I am not a thief. I am a victim of identity theft. And I am done being quiet. I edited nothing. I uploaded the raw file to a burner YouTube channel and a fresh TikTok account I named Violet Receipts. Now what? I asked, looking at Rosa. Now we light the fuse, she said. Rosa shared the video link into 3 local community Facebook groups she was part of: Westside Moms, Neighborhood Watch, and the Small Business Owners Alliance. Malik, true to his word, shared the video on his LinkedIn with a caption that was professional but damning. A textbook example of familial financial coercion and identity theft. This is why we need stronger protections for young adults. Then we waited. The first hour was agonizingly slow. The view count crawled. 10 views, 45 views, 100 views. Then the comments started. They weren't the bot-like praise Harper got. They were angry. Real. Wait, those signatures don't even look similar. That's blatant forgery. I'm a loan officer. The timeline on those transfers is damning. This isn't a misunderstanding, this is fraud. I know this family. They go to my church. I always wondered how they afforded all that stuff. Then the explosion happened. A popular commentary YouTuber, someone who usually debunked fake influencer apologies, found my video. He stitched it, playing Harper's tearful accusations side by side with my bank statement proof. Guys, the YouTuber said to his 2 million followers, you need to see this. The sister brought receipts, literal receipts. This girl Harper is lying through her veneers. My phone started buzzing so hard it vibrated off the table. The views skyrocketed. 50,000, 200,000. By the time the diner closed that night, my video had 1 million views across platforms. The narrative flipped so fast it gave me whiplash. The internet, usually a place of chaos, had latched onto the injustice. People saw themselves in me, the overlooked sibling, the worker bee, the one played for a fool. Harper went silent. Her daily vlog, usually posted at 6 p.m. sharp, never appeared. Then came the panic. Around 9 p.m., Denise posted a status on Facebook. It was a wall of text formatted with excessive exclamation points. Our family is being attacked by malicious lies. Violet is unwell and is being manipulated. We are consulting our lawyers about this defamation. Please respect our privacy during this heartbreaking time. It backfired instantly. The comment section turned into a slaughterhouse. People posted screenshots of my evidence in the replies. Defamation requires the statement to be false, Denise. Show us the loan documents then. You stole your daughter's identity for a deck, shame on you. I sat in the dark of the diner scrolling, feeling a strange, cold satisfaction. They had tried to bury me under a mountain of lies, and I had just tunneled my way out. The next morning, Malik called me. His voice was brisk. It's happening, Violet. The video did exactly what we hoped. The pressure is on. I just got off the phone with the fraud department at the main lender. Because the video went viral, they can't sweep this under the rug as a civil dispute. They've opened a formal investigation. What does that mean for them? I asked. It means accounts are being frozen, Malik said. It means your father is going to have some very uncomfortable questions to answer at his job. I heard through the grapevine that his company's compliance officer has already flagged him. Financial sector employees with pending fraud investigations are liabilities. I felt a pang of guilt, swift and sharp, but I crushed it. They didn't feel guilt when they ruined my career. But, Malik continued, his tone shifting, they aren't done. You know how your sister operates. What did she do? She's pivoting. Check your email. I just forwarded you a flyer that's circulating. I opened the attachment. It was a digital flyer designed in soft pastels with a picture of Harper looking pensive and hopeful. The Cole family. A night of forgiveness and healing. Join us at the Willow Creek Community Center this Saturday. We will be sharing our side of the story, addressing the rumors, and publicly inviting our estranged sister home to heal, open to the public. She's turning it into a show, I said, disbelief washing over me. She's going to live stream an apology to save her brand. It's a trap, Malik warned. They want to control the venue. They want to get you there, put a microphone in your face, and pressure you into a hug for the cameras. If you don't show up, they'll say you refused their olive branch. If you do show up, they'll ambush you with love and gaslight you in front of a live audience. I stared at the flyer. I saw the date, Saturday, 2 days away. They were betting on the old Violet, the Violet who hated confrontation, the Violet who would hide in the kitchen to avoid a scene. They thought they could spin this one last time. They thought that if they just put enough balloons and sad music around the lie, people would swallow it. But the old Violet was dead. She died the night they laughed at her while she held their coats. I'm going, I said. Violet, listen to me. Malik said, his voice urgent. You don't have to do this. We have the legal momentum. Walking into that room is dangerous. They will have a home court advantage. No, I said, standing up and catching my reflection in the diner window. I looked tired, yes, but I looked solid, unbreakable. If I don't go, they get the last word. They get to write the ending. I'm not letting them do that anymore. You realize what this will be? It won't be a conversation. It will be a spectacle. I know, I said, gripping the phone. I'm not going as their problem, Malik. I'm not going as the daughter who needs forgiveness. I looked at the stack of evidence binders on the table, the bank statements, the timestamps, the undeniable proof of their greed. I'm going as their consequence. The Willow Creek Community Center was suffocatingly hot, packed to capacity, with neighbors, church members, extended family, and a legion of Harper's local fans holding phones up like lighters at a concert. A massive banner hung over the stage, the Cole family forgiveness and healing. It made my stomach turn. I stood in the shadowed alcove near the back exit, Malik beside me, watching the performance unfold. My parents sat on plush white armchairs on stage, looking solemn and noble. Denise dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue, Mark looking stoic. And center stage, bathed in a spotlight, was Harper. She was in full performer mode. She wore a modest pastel dress, a calculated departure from her usual flashy style, and her voice trembled with practiced vulnerability. "We didn't want to make this public," Harper said into the microphone, her hand over her heart. "But the rumors, they've been so hurtful. We just want to clear the air." There were misunderstandings on both sides. Violet has always struggled emotionally, and maybe we pushed too hard because we wanted her to succeed. The audience murmured sympathetically. She was good. She was weaving a narrative where they were the benevolent martyrs dealing with a troubled, unstable daughter. "We just want her to know," Harper continued, looking directly into the main camera, "that the door is open. We forgive the debt. We forgive the anger. We just want our sister back." "She's burying you," Malik whispered, tapping his tablet. "Ready." "Yes," I said. I didn't storm the aisle. I didn't run. I walked. I walked down the center aisle with the steady rhythmic click of my heels on the linoleum, cutting through the soft piano music playing over the speakers. Heads turned. A ripple of whispers moved through the room like a wave. "Is that her? Is that Violet Harper?" Froze mid-sentence. Her eyes widened, not with joy, but with panic. Denise grabbed Mark's hand, her knuckles white. They hadn't expected me to actually show up. They expected me to hide, confirming their story, that I was ashamed. I reached the front of the stage. The silence in the room was absolute. I walked up the stairs, my heart hammering against my ribs, but my face cold stone. I stopped in front of Harper. She hesitated, then tried to go for a hug, playing to the cameras. I stepped back, leaving her arms empty in the air. I reached for the microphone in her hand. She didn't want to let go, but the community center director, an old man named Mr. Henderson, who looked confused by the tension, gently took it from her and handed it to me. I turned to the crowd. I saw Mrs. Gable from the church. I saw my old high school teachers. I saw the people who had watched me grow up in the background of Harper's spotlight. "You've heard their story," I said. My voice didn't waver. It boomed through the speakers, clear and authoritative. "You've heard about the misunderstandings. You've heard about the forgiveness. Now I'm going to tell you what they left out." I nodded to the back of the room. Malik hit a key on his laptop. The giant projection screen behind us, which had been displaying a slideshow of happy family memories, flickered. The image changed. It was a PDF of a loan application. "This is a $30,000 home improvement loan," I said, pointing at the screen without looking back. "It was taken out in my name 2 years ago. I did not sign it. But if you look closely at the IP address used to submit the electronic signature," the screen zoomed in. "It matches the IP address of the Cole family residence, my parents' house." Gasps rippled through the room. Mark stood up. "Now hold on, this is private financial." "Sit down," I said. I didn't shout it. I said it with the authority of someone who held the crushing weight of the truth. Mark, stunned, actually sat. "Next slide," I said. The screen changed to a timeline. On the left, July 12th, $12,000 personal loan disbursed to Violet Cole. On the right, July 14th, invoice from Dr. Eris Cosmetic Surgery for Harper Cole. "My sister told you I stole money to run away," I said, turning to look at Harper, who was pale beneath her stage makeup. "She told you I was on drugs, but the money didn't go to a dealer. It went to her surgeon. You aren't looking at a troubled sister. You are looking at the bank that funded her face." "That's a lie," Denise shrieked, jumping up. "This is manipulated. She's hacking the system." "I'm not done." I cut her off. "Next slide." The screen showed an email. It was the one Denise had sent me 3 days ago before they knew I was coming. The subject line "We need to talk." The text, "Violet, stop this nonsense. We can't transfer the debt to our names. Our credit won't take the hit. Just keep paying it and we'll let you come to Christmas. Don't be selfish." I let the words hang there. Don't be selfish. I turned to my parents. The room felt small now, focused entirely on the 4 of us. "You didn't just favor Harper," I said, my voice trembling with the release of 20 years of suppression. "You stole my future and then called it love. You taught everyone to see me as the problem so you would never have to look in a mirror. You cannibalized your own daughter to keep up appearances." I looked out at the audience. I'm not here to destroy them. I'm here to stop them from destroying me. I'm here to tell you that forgiveness without accountability is just permission to abuse again. And I am done giving them permission. The room was deadly silent. The sympathy that had been there for Harper moments ago had evaporated, replaced by a cold, horrified judgment. Harper couldn't take it. The silence, the judgment, the loss of control, it broke her. "You are so ungrateful," Harper screamed, her voice cracked shrill and ugly, picking up on the microphone I was still holding. "We gave you a roof over your head. We included you. Who cares about a few loans? You have a boring job. I have a career. I have a brand." She stomped her foot, the mask completely gone. "You owe us. You're nothing without us. You're just the background character. Why are you ruining my life over money? It's just money. You're so jealous and crazy." Flashbulbs went off. Phones were recording. She was screaming that I was nothing while standing in front of proof that she had stolen thousands of dollars from me. The contrast was visceral. "That's enough," a voice called out. It was Mr. Henderson, the director. But then a neighbor, Mrs. Kowalski, stood up in the third row. She was a stern woman who had lived next to us for 15 years. "She's right," Mrs. Kowalski said, her voice shaking with disgust. "I saw Mark building that deck. He told me he got a bonus. He lied. This isn't forgiveness. This is a crime. This is manipulation," another voice shouted from the back. "Shame on you, Denise," someone else yelled. The room devolved. People were standing up, some leaving in disgust, others shouting questions at my parents. Mark tried to grab the microphone from me, his face purple with rage, but Malik had already cut the sound from the booth. My father was shouting silently, looking desperate and small. I looked at them. My mother weeping into her hands, not for me, but for her reputation. My father trying to bully a room that no longer feared him. Harper hyperventilating as her brand disintegrated in real time. My phone buzzed in my hand. I looked down. It was a text from Malik. "Investigator is here. It's done." I looked to the side of the stage. 2 officers and a woman in a suit, the fraud investigator from the bank, were walking toward the stairs. Malik appeared at my elbow. "Violet," he whispered. "The investigator saw the evidence. They heard the admission. There's enough to formally open the fraud case right now. Do you want to press every charge you can?" I looked at my parents one last time. They looked terrified. For the first time in my life, they weren't the giants who controlled my world. They were just small, greedy people who had gotten caught. I didn't feel the triumph I expected. I just felt a profound, exhausting relief. The cord was cut. "I want them stopped," I said to Malik, loud enough for my mother to hear. "I don't want their money. I don't want their apologies. I want them to never be able to own anyone else's life ever again." I handed the microphone back to Mr. Henderson. I didn't look back at the chaos on stage. I walked down the stairs past the stunned silence of the front row and headed toward the exit. The air outside was cool and clean, and for the first time in 26 years, it felt like mine. The aftermath wasn't a fireworks show. It was a slow, grinding dismantle of a kingdom built on sand. In the weeks following the event at the community center, the reality of what my parents and sister had done caught up with them, not in the form of social media comments, but in the cold, hard language of the law. The fraud investigation was swift. Because the evidence I provided was so concrete, the IP addresses, the mismatched signatures, the bank transfers, the lenders, wasted no time. My parents' assets were frozen pending the investigation. Mark was quietly asked to resign from his firm to avoid a public scandal, though the whispers followed him anyway. Denise, who had spent decades curating her image as the perfect suburban matriarch, stopped going to the grocery store. She couldn't handle the stares. Harper's fall was louder. Her brand, which relied entirely on the perception of her being a sweet, aspirational success story, evaporated overnight. Sponsors pulled out within 48 hours. The luxury watch company, the skincare line, the clothing brand, they all issued statements distancing themselves from controversial figures. Her follower count dropped by the thousands every hour, her comment sections becoming graveyards of angry former fans demanding accountability. She had wanted to be famous. She got her wish, just not the way she intended. As for me, I felt a strange, hollow quiet. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel happy. I felt like someone who had survived a shipwreck and was finally sitting on dry land watching the storm rage out at sea. I grieved. I grieved for the parents I never had. I grieved for the sister I wished Harper could have been. I had to mourn the death of the fantasy, the childhood hope, that if I was just good enough, just quiet enough, they would eventually love me. But alongside the grief, there was relief. A clean, sharp relief that tasted like oxygen. With Malik's help, the fraudulent debts were scrubbed from my credit report. It took months of paperwork, notarized affidavits, and phone calls, but piece by piece, the chains they had wrapped around me fell away. For the first time in years, my name was mine again. I didn't go back to corporate payroll. The idea of sitting in a glass office felt suffocating now. Instead, I stayed at the diner. Rosa promoted me to manager, and I took over the books for her and 3 other small businesses in the neighborhood. I liked the work. It was honest. It was helping people who actually appreciated it. I also started something new. I bought a decent microphone and set up a small soundproofing corner in my new apartment, a place with big windows and no roommates. I launched a channel called Second Chances with Violet Cole. It wasn't about revenge, it was about resilience. I told my story not to bash my family, but to show the roadmap out of financial abuse. Then I started interviewing people who had been exploited by partners, parents, or employers, and how they rebuilt their lives. The channel grew slowly, then steadily. It became a community of people who, like me, had been told they were nothing and decided to become something. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, I was sitting at a corner booth in the diner working on a script for an upcoming episode. "You're gonna burn a hole in that screen if you stare any harder." I looked up. Eli Turner was standing there holding a refill for my coffee. He was a graphic designer with messy hair, ink-stained fingers, and a smile that always seemed a little shy. He had been coming in for months, usually working on his tablet while I managed the floor. "Just trying to figure out a logo," I admitted, rubbing my temples. "I'm good with numbers, not shapes." "I could take a look," Eli offered, shifting his weight. "I listened to the show. It's really good, Violet. What you're doing matters." I felt a flush of warmth that had nothing to do with the coffee. "You listen?" "Every week," he said. He sat down opposite me, keeping a respectful distance. "Let me help with the branding. Pro bono. Consider it a donation to the cause." We spent the next hour sketching ideas on napkins. He was kind. He listened when I spoke. He didn't interrupt, and he didn't try to take over. It was a gentle, slow burn chemistry, barely a spark, but it was there. I wasn't ready for anything serious. I had a lot of healing left to do, but sitting there with Eli laughing over a terrible font choice, I realized I wasn't closed off to the world anymore. I was learning that not everyone wanted to take from me. Some people just wanted to share a coffee. 6 months after the confrontation, a letter arrived in my mailbox. The return address was a P.O. box, but the handwriting was unmistakable. Loopy chaotic, pressed hard into the paper. "Harper." I sat on my floor and opened it. "Violet, Mom says I should write this. Things are really hard right now. We had to sell the house. We're in a condo now. It's so small. I hope you're happy. I lost my sponsors because of what you did. I'm trying to start over on a new platform, but it's hard when everyone hates you. I guess I'm sorry about the loans. I didn't think it was a big deal. We were going to pay you back eventually. You didn't have to ruin everything. Harper." I read it twice. There was no real apology, just blame wrapped in a whisper of regret. She still didn't get it. She probably never would. She was the main character of her own tragedy, and I was still just the villain in her script. A year ago, this letter would have broken me. I would have called her crying, apologizing for hurting her, begging to be let back in. Now I felt nothing, no anger, no sting, just a quiet, indifferent closure. I stood up, walked to my filing cabinet, and dropped the letter into a folder marked Past. I didn't burn it. I didn't frame it. I just filed it away. It was a document of a life I no longer lived. That weekend, I drove back to my old neighborhood. I parked the car down the street from the house on Willow Creek. It had a sold sign in the yard. The new owners were moving in, a young couple carrying boxes, laughing. The Range Rover was gone. The cedar deck my father had built with my credit was now just a deck where strangers would drink their morning coffee. I reached into the glove compartment and pulled out a small, crumpled piece of cardstock. I had kept it all this time. The card from the party, the one that had started the fire. Violet, maybe this will help you loosen up and find some sparkle like your sister. I looked at the dried spot of blood on the corner where my nail had dug in that night. I remembered the girl who stood in that kitchen feeling invisible, feeling erased. I wished I could go back and tell her that she was worth more than their approval. I got out of the car and walked to a public trash can on the corner. The wind was blowing cold and crisp, smelling of autumn leaves. I didn't make a speech. I didn't cry. I just tore the card in half. Then in half again, and again until it was nothing but confetti. I dropped the pieces into the bin. I found my own sparkle, I whispered to the empty street. I turned around and walked back to my car. I had a podcast to record. I had a dinner shift to manage. I had a logo meeting with Eli. My parents wanted a daughter they could own. My sister wanted a villain she could monetize. I spent 26 years trying to twist myself into a shape that would fit into their story. But I didn't become the victim they expected, and I didn't become the monster they claimed I was. I became someone I was proud of. I started the engine and drove away, leaving the house, the street, and the family name behind me in the rearview mirror. They wrote me off as their problem. I rewrote myself as my own person. And that was the one story they would never, ever control again. Violet finally drove away from the shadows of her past, leaving the toxicity in the rearview mirror to step fully into her own light. What would you have done if you were in her shoes? Let us know in the comments below. We read every single comment of your thoughts. If you enjoyed this journey, please hit that subscribe button. Thank you for listening. This has been a story from Radiance. We'll see you next time.